Oh, homies. Today was a day. That's for sure. Because I really thought that today was going to be one of the most peaked of days. And I tell you guys all the time, even though I'm on a quote unquote peak week, does not mean that I necessarily need to hit the heaviest weights. I'm still using the feel it out method to where if I genuinely believe I need some time to chill or if the weight's getting too heavy, I'll relax a little bit. I won't go too hard. So I thought originally I was going to do like some power movement or like a hang snatch movement for the accessory lift. But then I was like, okay, well, I actually never do muscle snatch, something I rarely do. And it's occasionally good for my technique, and this was a good idea. The execution was not very great, let me tell you. It was pretty lackluster. You're going to see it, but there are a lot of horrid attempts. 95 pounds was, of course, good because it was light enough for me to do it the way I wanted to. But 135, the first couple ones were so bad. I had to really lock it in. I got a good grip of it, and I got decent lifts. Every lift beyond that, because there were some where like either I missed it or the form was really bad, so I reset and tried to do a proper one. And it took like 3 attempts to hit 195, which is still a muscle snatch at 195 for the weights that I've been doing. That's great. I'm very happy with it. But I realized at the top set that my form was inefficient, and obviously like somebody might look at this and be like, oh, obviously, it was moving like shit. And I'm like, well, sorry, man. I've muscle snatched twice now in my life. I'm not used to it, and I've never been taught how to do it. So I did do the thing that you're not supposed to do, and I started looking up the famous Olympic lifters' muscle snatch technique to like compare it to my own. And comparing technique on your top lift will destroy you, man. It's really hard to come back from that because you doubt what you're capable of doing when you need the most effort and just no thoughts. You know what I'm saying? You can't be overthinking it when you're putting on the heaviest weights. And the lifts were not bad. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I did poorly. I did the best that I could, and it was a decent muscle snatch. The issue that I'm having is the consistency of moving from the pull into the press overhead. I've always struggled with that, and I thought that it was okay for it to be like really whippy or whatever. And I've watched a lot of videos, and it kind of turns out I probably need to decrease the weight next time a good bit and do more warm-up sets at lighter weights because it's predominantly like all shoulder. I didn't really realize that the people that appeared to be doing it the best used almost zero whippage going into the third lift or the third pull into your hips. I was treating it like a normal snatch until I got under the bar, but that whip made me land really, really hard. And so I'd kind of just like snatch it to right where my forehead is and then press it over my head. And that's not what I really want for my muscle snatch to be. That's not going to be the best thing to do to transition it to my main heavy lifts on the main snatch days. However, it's still a good thing to learn. It's good to take your time and really figure it out. I did use pretty much all of my energy, like hype-wise, learning how to do it, figuring it out, getting over the doubt, and then hitting a decent top set. And I'm excited to work on it better next time I try it out, whenever I try to do that. But, it still took a lot out of me. It's really hard to get hype about a lift that you don't really exactly know how to do or if the form's going to be decent in the first place, If I thought the form was going to be bad before getting into it, I wouldn't have gone heavy, but you live and you learn. So now we know, and I'll work on it next time, and I'm sure it'll get better and better and better. Bench press went really, really well for how little energy I had after that. Let me tell you. I had like the very good hype of another gym homie there, so I'm very happy for that. But I think I went a little too hard on one of the warm-up sets, or I just wasn't really locking it in. And the imbalance on my shoulders, that's, even though the rear delt on my left shoulder is recovered, it's still not at 100%, you know what I'm saying? And so there's still going to be some deviations in my technique where I start hitting that grinding point. Because my left shoulder isn't as strong as my right, my left pec tries to take over my right. And so it's that little imbalance that causes my chest pulls that I've had in the past. So I felt that little bit of phantom pain, that little bit of soreness, and I was like, okay, we are now going to take it one weight at a time, no matter what. Immediately got my boy, my spotter, my good gym homie, at 255, and I was like, look, I don't care if this is the top set. I could end at 255 today. As long as the form is perfect, we'll try and go up. As long as I don't feel a risk for injury and it's not kicking me and it's not like I'm not feeling any tweaks, I'm going to try, And the fact that I got the 345, I'm very, very, very happy with, because that was like the goal. I didn't expect to hit that weight at all. And it's actually kind of fun, like, because I took such a priority in locking in the technique and having that controlled descent, not a slow tempo descent, but just tempoed enough to where I'm not wobbling or letting it bounce off my chest super hard. And it gave me a consistent drive through the rest of it, because I usually struggle a lot in my sticking point halfway on the way up. And it's going to look like he bumped it up. There's still a part of me that thinks he did, but it's also a big placebo. And he told me he swears on his God, he swears on his mama, he did not touch the barbell in any way to help me. So I'm just going to say that it's placebo, because I trust the man, and he was a big support. So one way or another, I still put in great effort, and I don't give a shit if he touched it anyway. But the biggest thing was that I managed to get to that sticking point, and whether it was placebo or not, where like I thought that he bumped it a little bit, so I didn't have to worry as much about failing it, and I could just push through as hard as I wanted. I still grinded through it as hard as I could, got the most effort out of it, and that strength will come back double time in the long run, I don't care if I can't hit 345 in a couple of days when I bench again. I'm just going to try to emulate that really, really good technique so that I don't injure myself, but I also maintain the basis that I've set for myself. So much of this is really just, I tell people all the time, you have to choose lifts that you are shit at, And I don't mean ones that are just overly difficult that you are not prepared for at all. I'm talking about the ones that you maybe not have the most experience in, the ones that you're not as sure about, that you can whip heavy weight on, the ones where you actually doubt yourself. Because if you could push past the doubtful lifts, you will make so much progress in the long run, because it sets a great, great ground level for you to build off of, Because honestly, like after that whole figuring the muscle snatch out and then trying to get into the bench press with no energy, like I was ready to just call it quits, send it home. But you have to give it that chance. You have to see how much you can grow through it, And I still did better than I expected to do. It's not what I exactly wanted, but I still did my best. That's what matters, man. And the biggest thing is trying to emulate as good a form as you're currently capable of, regardless of how it compares to others. That's why I said I made the mistake of trying to look at other people's technique right when I was hitting my top lift especially. Because even if I did that in the beginning of the workout, it would have made me question everything that I had worked on that certain lift. Even though I've only done it one other time, I have my own basis for this lift. And I have to go through the motions myself to understand and learn how I'm inefficient in it. Because my muscle snatch is not going to look the exact same as Lasha or Lu Jiajun or Li Dayan, like all those big guys. It's just going to be the best that I can put out, and it'll get better along the way. As long as the technique is as good as I can hold it for what I'm currently capable of, that is what I care about, So I'm going to keep working on it. But you have to pick the stuff. It's not like forcing yourself to do things that are overly strenuous, but when you have certain availability, like on my recovery accessory days, where I can kind of pick and choose what hard lift I try to do for my accessory snatch or clean and jerks, I have to sit there and I have to say, is this easy technique-wise? Will it challenge me enough? Will it push me in a way that I can focus on my core, my technique, without letting the strength overtake me? Like doing the no-foot clean and jerk yesterday was incredible. I've never done that before, and I made really great technical gains without worrying about the weight. Because I don't want to be putting up 3 plates on a recovery day. That's stupid. I want to do that the next time I come in on a heavy clean and jerk day. So it's just taking it bit by bit. But even on the bench press, even though I'm not doing accessory lifts for the squats and bench anymore for the moment, it's still important to challenge yourself in a way that doesn't fully correlate with what you're exactly expecting, Because like I said, like I'm used to having my grip super narrow and letting the bar bounce on my chest and exploding as hard as I can, which again is what led to the shoulder imbalance and pulling my left pec 3 times last year. It was a whole lot of stupidness, just trying to push it as hard as I can without having the capabilities to hold it with a stable technique, And so I told my gym homie, I was like, look, man, I'm going to lock in my back and my lats and my shoulders and my chest and my arms as hard as I can, and I'm going to keep that descent tempo. So even if I miss it, I do not care. Try to have me grind for it without it overtaking my technique. And somehow we push through. It's my bench is slower than it was before, even though I've transitioned back into doing the narrow grip. That is a great thing because it gives myself a better basis and a more stable body to lift off of. I tell you guys all the time with my squats, if I'm burned out in the CNS or in my core or my low back, I've got to take my time getting into the acid grass position so that I can explode out of it however I want. It's going to make the lift harder, yes. Could I have benched more if I had been able to explode a little bit harder? Maybe. I don't know. But it doesn't matter. That's not what the focus is. The focus is doing the best that I can with the abilities that I have today. Not this program, not this week, not this month, not this year. Today, during this session, can I do it the best that I want to? And I fucking grinded through. And that's what matters, you know? I ended up spotting him after, you know, because he hyped me up a good bit, and I love giving that kind of energy back. You know, I tell people all the time, if I'm going to spot you, I'm going to yell at you to get that shit up. If it's a heavyweight, I'm going to either be, you know, hyping you up, or if it's a heavy-ass weight, I'm yelling at you. I don't care, because that's what gets people to lift. That's what gets people to stop thinking and just do it. He put on 2 plates, and I was like, lock your whole body and compress the muscles in your back and shoulders and lats as much as you can so that you have the most stable base. Don't rush the descent. Hold it as strong as you can, and I promise you, it's going to be harder initially, but that consistency through the end of the lift is going to follow through. Destroy 225. I was like, we're putting on 245. And we did, and he crushed it. Same thing that happened to me. Like, I put my hands under the barbell to make him think I was touching it when he fully had it, grinded through, and I was like, brother, you killed it, you know? So that's what matters, man. Not hitting the most explosive, crazy max out, oh, I destroyed my rib cage, benching as hard as I wanted to, raw kind of bench. But the bench that I want to walk away proud of, that I can build off of, that I can create even better opportunities next time off of, you know? Same thing with the snatch. The muscle snatches, they're not great yet. They're not what I want them to be, but they're going to transition one way or another because I fucking tried. You know, I was passionate about it, and I put in my best effort. Physically, not my best. Pretty low energy, but did what I could. And I'm very proud of the effort either way, because I hit weights that I did not expect by any means to hit, purely based off my mental energy alone, regardless of my physical. But the peak has hit, you know. I'm set up enough to where I could do these heavy weights without feeling over burned out in the moment or too fatigued when I leave, you know, and that's the whole goal. I want to be able to do this week without feeling like I'm destroying my body with it like I used to. So I'll still give it a very solid 8.5, right in the 8.45, you know, just a little lower than the midway, but it was a good day. I can't tell myself it wasn't. I just wasn't locked in the sense of strength. You know, I had to put the technique really, really, really far first, which was better, but it doesn't allow me to activate as much muscle stimulus as I typically would want to on this heavy of a day. Either way, mentally, it was still fun. You know, I've still been doing great in life. It's kind of funny. I ran into a previous negative stimulus, we'll call it, you know, that I've had troubles with kind of recently, but something I've moved on from that I had to kind of walk into on accident today. And it was good to be able to see said thing and then be like, that's okay. You know, there's that little flare of anxiety. Your initial response is always going to be like, because your last memory with said thing is going to be tough. But I've been pushing hard, and I've been doing the best that I can to better myself, and really appreciating the efforts I've been putting in with these hard-ass lifts and this good program that I love right now, and just spending as much time with the people that I really, really care about in my daily life, no matter what. So even though I ran into something that stressed me out in a way that I didn't imagine it would, I walked away very proud. You know, I walked away with my head high. I got home, and I was like, it's good when you've gotten over something that can be labeled as traumatic. I don't want to go that far, but it was really hard, for sure. And so when you run back into that thing, your initial response is going to reflect your last memory, which was probably bad with it. But it's a really good thing if you can, chill out, walk away, and then think about it, and it be okay to think about, It's not just something that I block out of my memory anymore just to avoid it. I'm very, very happy about that. So we're moving forward. I'm doing the best I can. I'm loving life. Can't complain, So mentally, I'll give it a really good 8.85. It was still a really good day. It wasn't crazy. I was a little bummed out about the snatches not feeling the way I wanted them to, but it's a great basis to build off of. It means I got tons of room to build from that. So rest day tomorrow. We're halfway through the peak week. Going to try to keep up as best I can. I'm really excited to see how clean and jerks move because I get to actually see how heavy a clean and jerk I can do right now. I have zero expectations. I think clean and jerk's going to feel better than snatch for sure. But one way or another, I have no obligation to hit heavyweight. It's just whatever feels good. Even if I don't get to hit anything heavy, that's fine. I'm just going to keep putting in my best effort. 3 plates obviously would be a great goal. Everything's been feeling really, really good. I would love to be able to hit something like that again because that's kind of where I left off when I last peaked. So if I can get around that, happy as can be. Won't be able to complain. We'll move on. Do the best we can. Holding our heads high. Appreciate y'all hanging out. Thanks for shooting the shit. Love hanging out with you guys, being able to get it out. Let me know how your lifts and lives have been going. Love hearing about it. And I will be back day after tomorrow for a heavy clean jerk day. I love you guys. See you later. Bye.